This summer, our family went to Albania. We were excited because it truly had a bit of everything: mountains, beaches, charming towns, and some very unique experiences. You can hike through alpine villages in the morning, soak in natural hot springs by afternoon, and end the day with fresh seafood on the coast. Plus, no crowds, no chain restaurants, and no shortage of amazing memories. We are off on a real adventure and can't wait to show you around. So, many of you may be asking, Albania? Where exactly is that? Albania is in Europe on the Balkan Peninsula, tucked right between Greece and Montenegro, and east of Italy across the Adriatic Sea. We think that Albania is a hidden gem and is flying under the radar as far as tourism goes, for now at least. We landed in the capital city of Tirana and then grabbed our rental car and took the 30-minute drive downtown to our Airbnb, where we set off to get some food after a long day of travel. On our first full day in Albania, we were eager to explore. After a delicious breakfast, we wandered around to see some of Tirana's most famous sights, taking in the mix of old communist-era buildings, street art, and modern cafes. Another interesting thing we did in Tirana is we climbed the Tirana Pyramid. Built in the 1980s as a museum to Albania's dictator Enver Hoxha, this iconic structure was abandoned, graffitied, and finally transformed into the interesting structure it is today. Skanderbeg Square. This is the heart of Tirana, a giant open plaza where you'll find kids on scooters, couples strolling, and a statue of Albania's national hero, Skanderbeg, who fought against the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century. One interesting thing you'll notice about Albania is that there are so many bunkers, over 170,000 concrete domes built during the communist era. Now, some are museums, art galleries, or even cow shelters. We found an old bunker-turned museum called Bunkart 2, a Cold War-era bunker-turned museum. Built as a shelter for Albania's communist leaders, it now tells the story of the secret police and the decades of dictatorship that shaped the country. For dinner, we visited Tirana Castle, which is one of the city's oldest landmarks. Think less Game of Thrones, more let's grab dinner inside a 1,500-year-old wall. I know we just made it to Albania, but today we are heading to a new country. Don't worry, we will be back to Albania soon. But for a long time we've been reading about North Macedonia and its beauty and culture, and we couldn't pass up a visit when we were this close. Our amazing Airbnb had the best view over Lake Ohrid, one of Europe's oldest and deepest lakes. It is estimated to be 3 to 5 million years old, and at its deepest, it is almost 1,000 feet deep. That evening, we wandered the Old Town Bazaar, enjoyed dinner in a charming square, and capped off the night with a private sunset cruise across the calm waters of Lake Ohrid. Our sunset cruise gave us stunning views of the Old Town and the first magical glimpse of the Church of St. John perched on the cliff. The water was calm, the sky lit up with colors, and the best part, the whole experience for all four of us was only $25. Definitely a must-do here in Ohrid. The next morning, we began with a lakeside breakfast before we walked the wooden boardwalk that hugs the shoreline. We made our way to the Church of St. John, one of the most photographed spots in the Balkans. Perched on a cliff overlooking the lake, the small medieval church is as peaceful as it is beautiful. From the church, we hiked uphill to Samuel's Fortress, once the seat of a powerful medieval empire. Standing on its walls, we had panoramic views of the lake, the town, and the surrounding mountains. In the afternoon, we strolled through the old bazaar and visited the National Workshop for handmade paper. It's one of the few places in the world still making paper the way they did in the 16th century, using water, cotton, and patience. We also visited the upper gate of the old fortress, once the city's main entrance. Just a short walk away is the ancient Macedonian theater of Lynknidos, built over 2,000 years ago. Standing here, you can almost imagine the plays and gladiator battles that once took place. After a restful evening, it was time to head back into Albania. We made a few stops along the way and had great views of Lake Ohrid on our way out of North Macedonia. Our first stop back in Albania was the town of Korce for a look around the bazaars and had a huge lunch at Mr. Crate. The drive to Permet was full of surprises: super windy mountain roads, sheep herders guiding their flocks across the road, and cows meandering along the highway. We even found a place to shoot some hoops in a tiny town of Korce on our way. In Permet, we checked into the funky guest house, super cozy and just a short walk from the river. That evening, we went swimming in the crystal clear waters of the Vjosa River, surrounded by mountains and that laid-back small-town vibe. The Vjosa River was chilly and felt great on a warm evening. The swimming hole was just a short walk from the city square, had some small cliff jumps you could take, and to top it off, a random stray dog was there protecting swimmers. The next day was packed with adventure. We joined a whitewater rafting trip on the Vjosa River, one of Europe's last wild rivers. While the rapids weren't too intense, the guides kept it fun with cliff jumps and plenty of swimming stops. Drifting between canyons and wide open valleys, we were surrounded by untouched nature, green hillsides, stone cliffs, and crystal blue water that winds through southern Albania. It's hard to believe rivers like this still exist in Europe, free from dams and development. The Vjosa also has deep roots in history. It was once a vital trade route during the Ottoman era, and today it's a symbol of Albania's fight to preserve wild places. That evening, we visited the nearby Benha hot springs, nestled in a mountain gorge with a centuries-old Ottoman bridge beside them. The water wasn't exactly hot, but the setting was unforgettable. The mineral water is more like bath water, but locals say it's full of healing properties. Between the history, the scenery, and the warm pools under the open sky, it was a great place to visit. All right, I'm on top of the big rock here in Permet, Albania. At this portion of the trip, we actually did some whitewater rafting. We went down to the river down here and did some cliff jumping, some swimming. We also went to some natural springs in the afternoon, had some nice Albanian dinners. You'll see the rest here on the clips, but we really enjoyed this town. Lots to do, lots of nature. Good stuff here. The stone of the city is a massive limestone rock rising about 40 meters above the town of Permet. Atop the rock were ruins of a 4th century fortification, plus walls used for signaling a military garrison that once watched over the Vjosa Valley. Legends say this rock gave the city its name. A local ruler, Permet, and his daughter jumped from it rather than surrender during Ottoman invasions. Whether myth or history, standing up there, it feels charged. Our road trip continued toward the coast, but not before stopping in Gjirokaster, a UNESCO town known for its dramatic stone houses and hilltop castle. The bazaar here was one of the prettiest we saw in Albania. Gjirokaster Castle itself is massive, with sweeping views of the Drino Valley and even an old U.S. spy plane on display. Walking the cobbled streets of the bazaar felt like stepping back in time. Stone arches, colorful textiles, and the sound of craftsmen working in tiny shops. It's easy to see why Gjirokaster is called the City of Stone. Next, we visited the Blue Eye Spring, a natural pool of icy turquoise water that seems to bubble up endlessly from underground. While it was beautiful, it's also very popular, and the crowds made it feel a bit less magical. By the time we arrived in Sarande, we were ready to relax. Our hotel had a private beach and a pool with stunning views over the Ionian Sea, making it the perfect place to unwind. Sarande is right on the Albanian Riviera and gets over 300 days of sunshine a year. Along the coast, you'll find tons of quaint beach towns with crystal blue water. After a busy travel schedule, we needed a recharge day, and Sarande was the perfect spot for it. We spent our first day soaking up the sun on the beach and by the pool, just enjoying the Ionian sea breeze. In the late morning, we wandered through town, checking out Sarande's seaside vibes. We even found a local basketball court with an incredible view of the sea. Couldn't resist shooting a few hoops. To end the day, we sat down for a traditional Albanian dinner, fresh, flavorful, and just what we needed. And with that, we wrapped up early, getting ready for a big adventure the next day. One highlight of basing ourselves in Sarande was the easy ferry ride to Corfu, Greece. The process was simple. We bought tickets at the terminal the night before and left early in the morning. In Corfu, we spent the afternoon wandering the UNESCO-listed old town with its Venetian architecture before heading out on a private boat trip. The crystal clear waters, hidden coves, and views of Corfu town from the sea made it a perfect half-day adventure. The highlight of Corfu was our private boat trip. From the water, we floated past Corfu's old fortress and the massive new fortress, getting views that felt like stepping back in time. Along the way, we passed multi-million-dollar yachts, tucked into hidden coves that looked like scenes from a postcard, and swam in water so clear it felt unreal. We snorkeled through schools of striped fish, and the views below the surface were just as magical as the ones above. With the sun dropping behind Corfu town, it made a perfect ending to our evening. For our last adventure in Albania, we started a long drive, first making a stop at Apollonia Archaeological Park, once one of the most important cities of the ancient Greek world and now has impressive ruins without the crowds. For our final stop in Albania, we drove north into the Albanian Alps to reach the village of Theth, which is a remote village surrounded by dramatic peaks. The last hour of the drive to Theth was a narrow, winding mountain road, but it was fully paved and safe, just a matter of squeezing past oncoming cars. In Theth, we stayed in a family-run guest house called Hotel Zelina, which was a super charming place with views of the mountains and a flowing river you could hear through the open windows. Our first hike in the Albanian Alps was to the Blue Eye of Theth, not to be confused with the one near Sarande. We cut the trek down to about 4 miles by driving part of the way, but it was still a challenging climb with some steep sections. The trail winds through forest paths and rocky slopes with little streams crossing the way, so good shoes are a must. Parking is available a few miles down, which helps if you want to save time and energy. When you make it to the end of the trail, you'll be rewarded with a dazzling pool of turquoise water fed by icy mountain springs. The water sits around 5 to 7 degrees Celsius. That's in the low 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Jumping in literally takes your breath away, but it's one of those once-in-a-lifetime swims you'll never forget. The best time to go is early in the morning or later in the afternoon when the light hits the pool just right and the crowds are thinner. Whether you're swimming, relaxing on the rocks, or just taking in the view, it's one of Theth's most unforgettable spots. Later that afternoon, we hiked up to Gjirokaster Waterfall, a 30-meter cascade surrounded by sheer cliffs and alpine views. The hike itself is just over a mile from Theth, an easy to moderate trail that winds along the river and through wildflower meadows. You will need to be ready to do a little bit of scrambling through some rocks in the last 100 yards. On the way back to our Airbnb, the skies opened up and we got absolutely drenched. Instead of being miserable, the kids turned it into a game, splashing through puddles and laughing the whole way. Honestly, it might have been the highlight of the day. Between the epic scenery and that surprise storm, Gjirokaster wasn't just a hike. It was an adventure we'll never forget. After a long day of hiking, we headed to one of the many cozy guest houses in Theth for dinner. Hotel Restaurant Alpit quickly became one of our favorites. The food here is homemade, hearty, and truly Albanian. One standout dish was fergesi. Creamy, savory, and full of flavor, it's comfort food at its best. And to top it all off, we indulged in a sweet Albanian twist on tres leches, the perfect ending to a day in the mountains. The next morning, I decided to tackle the Valbona Pass hike, one of the most iconic trails in the Albanian Alps. It's part of the famous Peaks of the Balkans route, connecting the villages of Theth and Valbona. The climb is strenuous, with over 1,200 meters of elevation gain, but every step rewards you with sweeping views of jagged peaks and wild valleys. Sections of the trail hug steep cliffs, and unfortunately there have been cases of hikers going missing here. Good shoes, plenty of water, and sticking to the path are must. At the pass, sitting at around 1,800 meters, the weather can shift quickly. Sunny one minute, cloudy and cold the next. Bring a sweatshirt even in summer because the wind at the top cuts right through you. This route isn't just about nature, it's history too. For centuries, villagers used this very pass to trade goods, travel between valleys, and even as a lifeline during harsh winters when the mountains cut communities off from the rest of Albania. Though many continue on to Valbona, I turned back to Theth where my car and family were waiting. Still, reaching the pass felt like standing on top of the Balkans, a mix of history, challenge, and raw alpine beauty that makes this trail unforgettable. In the late afternoon, we wandered around Theth Church, a beautiful stone structure tucked into the valley, and explored the surrounding river valley. The views of the alpine meadows and cascading streams were absolutely stunning. Then it was time for some adrenaline. We had to try out the Theth zipline. Soaring over the treetops with the valley below gave a completely different perspective of Theth, and the wind in your face made it feel like you were flying. For our last evening in Albania, we returned for our second dinner in a row at Alpit Guest House. Perched on a hillside with unbeatable views of the valley, watching the sunset over the mountains, we couldn't help but reflect on how much this country has surprised us, its history, its landscapes, and the warmth of its people.